Exactly, and there's another where we go. If we have to have equality of sexes, of sexual orientation, based on race, based on sex, I said that, then of course we have to have equality of cultures, and that's where we get multiculturalism and political incorrectness, right?
Exactly.
And this is, to me, where it gets even more dangerous. If I have a protected status because I'm a woman under the law and you commit a crime against me, it's now a hate crime. But if I commit a crime with you, against you, a white male, you have no protected status. That's the phrase angry white male. That's where it comes from. But when I look at this, really the white males are the only category of Americans I see that have no protected status. And I wonder if that was designed because what does the white male represent to most people? Well, Western civilization, capitalism built this country, and of course all the things that the communists despise, and the liberals, and the neo-communists. Am I right? That's where what came from? That's where we're going with that?
Exactly. Look, Mary,
well, that's dangerous. I mean, hate crime has got to be the most unconstitutional Marxist law that I can think of.
The hate crime, the legislation purports to be able to tell what was in your mind when you did something. Well, right now we have a law, for example, against murder. Everywhere in the country, murder is illegal as far as I know. There's no place where murder is legal. Well, so when people have committed murders, you already have legislation, but what they now do, they tack on additional penalties if they can figure out that you did this with some racial motive behind your action. Well, how do you determine that? It's something that's so arbitrary. Only the government has the power to decide. Oh well, yes, this is a hate crime. We're going to pursue this.
But you have to be a member of a protected status for that to apply.
You have to be a member. By the way, I'm not going to do anything like what you mentioned to you, Mary. I mean, you need to get that down.
Okay.
Yes.
I appreciate that. All right. One more thing. In our never-ending, the government's never-ending quest for equality of, as you pointed out, of housing. So we had the bubble of income, on promotion, et cetera, et cetera. There's a new threat that's come up to me that it just absolutely blows my mind. And I want you to address that, the ENDA legislation introduced by Barney Frank.
Barney Frank, yeah, the discrimination against employment legislation. Well, this is going to, one obvious immediate effect you will get is people will be afraid to hire people, won't they?
Right. Okay, let's explain. This gives special status, special rights to people based on their sexual orientation. And the end results of this, as I understand, is it will totally influence church and church schools, correct?
Well, of course it will, because, again, you're going to have all of these employers, churches, church schools who have been hiring people. They will be afraid to hire people because you know that orchestrated, organized sodomy will send secret agents in to cause disruption. They will pretend to be normal. And once they are hired, now they will reveal, no, we fooled you, we're not normal, but now we're employees and we demand the right to be flaming sodomites here and thereby cause disruption. And of course, the thing that is so preposterous, here you've got a man, Barney Frank. He's the guy, the chairman of the House Banking Services Committee, the guy with the lisp, the fat guy with the lisp you see on television all the time. All right, here's a guy, he's running a homosexual prostitution ring out of his apartment. Isn't this against the law? I mean, I don't know.
Yes, unless you're a congressman, apparently.
Unless you're a congressman. He's running a homosexual prostitution ring. Now, they go to ask him about it. Barney, what about this? Oh, well, I wasn't aware of it. My roommate was doing that. He's in an apartment with a guy, and his roommate's running a homosexual prostitution ring. I presume that means guys are coming in and out.
Exactly,
Barney, a guy as smart as Barney Frank, he can't figure out he doesn't ask any questions. Hey, what's happening here?
He was totally unaware of this.
And remember that this also plays into the fiscal debacle, because one of Barney Frank's homosexual sodomite lovers was an official at Freddie Mac, remember?
There you go.
And so there was a lot of contamination there. I mean, this has been all over the media recently.
But Alan, this INDA is a total attack on religious freedom in this country. I mean, you can't give group rights without taking rights from individuals, is what it comes down to. Say you're a pastor and you have a church school. You're right. You want to be careful who does daycare, who drives the children. You want to make sure that they have no potential to molest a child, or they're not leaning that way. What are you supposed to do? You can be sued.
Well, you know, this is so revealing. Wouldn't you think that this proposed legislation would go head to head with the children's defenders, you know, the people who say, well, we must do everything for the children. That's why we have the war on drugs. That's why we've destroyed financial privacy. That's why the government has to get into everything. We have to do this to protect the children. We must do everything to protect the children. Where are they here?
Exactly. Where are they?
Shouldn't they be yelling and screaming about this? Not a peep out of them. Demonstrating the fraudulence, all of these campaigns in the different areas of our civilization, all heading in the same direction. But you can see.
And by the way, Obama supports this. He's got 2 kids of his own. What's he thinking?
Well, but his kids are not going to be affected by this because his kids are
You're
in
right.
a very expensive,
You're right.
an incredibly expensive private school in Washington that very few Americans of any color could afford to buy a doorknob in.
And how have you read many articles about this threatening bill, Inda? I mean, everybody needs to take this information, look it up on the web, and, on the net, and take it to your pastors. People need to understand what's coming down if this passes. And I presume they have the numbers to pass it.
We are just getting started with the application. Apparently, the revolutionaries now feel they have now rotted away our bases, the basics, the fundamentals of our civilization and culture. Apparently, they feel they've rotted them away to a sufficient extent where now they can begin to impose their dictatorship using the dictatorial legislation bequeathed to us by the Bush administration.
Well, that's true, and they couldn't have done this without multiculturalism. In other words, everybody's culture has to be equal.
Exactly.
And they brainwashed everybody, the media, et cetera, public schools, that this is true. Well, it's a patent lie. Cultures are not equal any more than people are equal. But if you accept that, then you might look at this end and think, well, you know, the church should hire a homosexual to be a driver to a church school. I mean, some people out there probably think that that's okay.
Well, it destroys private property, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Completely.
And religious freedom.
The people who are proposing this would have you shot down if you tried to do the same thing to them in their haunts, the places that they frequent.
Well, we're almost out of time, but we've got to address the case. And to me, this epitomizes how important this legislation was. Talk about the illegal aliens that are suing the Arizona rancher for violation of their civil rights.
Okay.
Set that up so people...
There is a rancher in Arizona on the border, Roger Barnett, farms thousands of acres, ranches thousands of acres there. He should be taken to Washington and given some kind of a decoration for heroism and patriotism, because over the course of about 10 years, he has confronted and turned over to the Border Patrol about 10,000 illegal aliens, criminals, violating our law, trying to come into our country illegally. So he confronts 16 of them, turns them over to the Border Patrol. The 16 of them, one of them, as I recall, is a convict, sue him with the help of MALDEF, the Mexican-American Legal Defense and Education Fund, which is a red organization, which is financed in considerable part, has been over the years, by the Ford family.